just, he's in God's hands right now. So I want to pray a special prayer for him.
Remember Mike's uncle, Jesse Jewell, he's been a preacher most of his life. We went over there yesterday and, he just needs prayer. His legs bother him, his knees bother him, has time getting up and down out of the chair. He just needs prayer.
Mom said to remember her tonight.
Remember ones down here?
Yep. Well, it's a nasty old night. You got little kids and, you know, that's why we were talking on the way here, you know, if we move our time up another hour, it's so late. You know, it's like, do you get here early? Or you get here, it's too early to get here? Or it's too late to get, you know, it's so, anyway, but yeah.
Remember JT, my heart just goes out to JT every day.
That's rough. That's rough. Yeah, I think about him a lot.
We need to continue with the Redford family also. We went to that memorial service Tuesday night. And Ronnie's having a pretty, his son's having a pretty rough time. He's still out there with his daddy. I mean, just house apart.
Remember JT's little granddaughter Ivy? Did you hear what he was telling the other day?
No.
That every night she has to get somebody to take her to the cemetery till her had a good night.
Oh, wow.
That's sad.
Yeah.
But we much better for that.
Remember all the drivers on the road because Donna just came in on two wheels.
Well, they're safe for a while.
Yep.
Hour anyways.
Brother Charles, you want to lead us tonight? Thank you.
Father, we do thank you again, Lord, for another day of life that you've given us. We thank you for salvation, for your grace and your mercy. Lord, thank you for these that come out tonight and just bless each one. And I thank you for the safety out on the highways, Lord, that you just watched over each one of us, Lord, and kept us safe. We pray for each need out there brought before you, and know, Lord, that they're in your hands. You're the great healer, Lord, but yet we honor what your decision, whatever it might be. And Lord, I pray for the service tonight, be with Brother Josh, Lord, just give him wisdom. Give us understanding as he comes to teaching through us, Lord, that we might grow in your knowledge and in your wisdom, Lord, and grow closer to you. And Lord, we ask forgiveness now when we fail, when we sin, and we give you praise for it all. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
We need to start a new chapter in John tonight. Before we do, I want us to go back in Isaiah chapter 42. Isaiah 42. We've looked in the law quite a bit in our study of John because sometimes we needed to set context. Sometimes we needed to see different details in the law of Moses so that we understand what's going on, you know, especially the conversations between Jesus and even in the Pharisees or the scribes and this back and forth. And so we've spent a lot of time looking in the law, and Leviticus and Deuteronomy and things, but we haven't looked very much in the prophets. And I know we looked at a couple verses out of this last week or the week before, and then Mike happened to be in this chapter in Sunday school Sunday morning. I got looking at it and I thought, you know, this as we are focused on Jesus' ministry as he's doing it, sometimes maybe we need to go back and look at some of the prophecies about Jesus' ministry. And Isaiah 42, there's just several things there that, as I was looking forward in the next this chapter of John and the next chapter of John, there's just several things here in just a few verses that are prophesied about that I just thought it's interesting to bring out as we study in John. So Isaiah 42. verse 1, we won't read the whole chapter, but we'll catch a few of these things. It says, behold my servant. Behold my servant. And so this is the Father talking about the Son. Behold my servant whom I uphold, mine elect, in whom my soul delighteth. I have put my spirit upon him. He shall bring forth judgment to the Gentiles. You think about this, how God has him write this. Says, my soul delighteth. That's the Father talking about the Son, but he says, my soul delighteth. You know, when the Bible says we're made in the image of God, you know, there's some things I don't understand about that. I just accept them. But God says, my soul delighteth in that. And I think it's strange. Anyway, he says, I've put my spirit upon him. This is Jesus' ministry. Remember what happened when Jesus got baptized? In the Spirit. Okay. So this chapter is going to talk about some things in Jesus' ministry. There at the end, he shall bring forth judgment to the Gentiles. Now, when we think of judgment, like I always automatically think, courtroom, the judge is up there, you're in front of the judge, like you're going to be judged, judgment. You know, I just automatically think about that. But you know that's not the only way the word is used. Judgment is also discernment, isn't it? So when he says here, he's going to bring forth judgment to the Gentiles, does that mean that when he comes, the Gentiles are going to be judged, like by the judge? Or that he's going to give them discernment? And we'll know in a minute. We know, but we just get stuck. Like, it's easy to get stuck every time you see a word and you think, you know, it always means a certain thing. We don't use the context to get it. But now think about who. Now this is Isaiah. So this is a long time before Jesus shows up. God's chosen people is a little tiny nation made up of the descendants of Abraham. Okay. They don't get along well with the people. Now, for those of you who missed our studies from way back in the Bible, everybody who's not Jewish or a descendant of Abraham is a Gentile. So in your New Testament, you'll see the word Gentile and Greek and is there another one? Anyway, so that's everybody. Now they don't get along really well with people. Well, they don't think a lot of the people who are not their own blood relations. You remember, and that help you understand why, for instance, when Jonah is sent to the city of Nineveh to preach, he didn't want to do it. Those were non-Jews, and he was mad. Why would God want to save those wicked people? You know, and so you have this verse in here. It's going to start becoming more. We'll see more of this in John, because do you remember in the last chapter when we were studying, they said that Jesus had a devil. Remember that toward the end of the last chapter? They told Jesus, "You have a devil and you're a Samaritan." And that's a turning point in Jesus' ministry. Something changes. Now, over in Matthew, when they accuse him of having a devil, that's when he stops talking straight and starts talking in parables. It just changes just like that. And John's recording different things for us, and his focus is a little bit different. And then again, you got to remember, John is going to write his gospel about 30 or more years after Matthew, Mark, and Luke are written. So when John is written, the gospel's already gone out to the Gentiles, been out to them for over 2 decades. Jesus is going to die on the cross. Book of Acts, he's going to say you're going to take the gospel here, and then out to the world. And that's exactly how they do it in the book of Acts. And so the first Gentiles don't hear the gospel until about 7 years after Jesus' ascension. which is important. If you know that, that's why there's such a big deal about it later on in the book of Acts, when they call Peter in and say, you went to a Gentile's home, and he has to give an account. And he says, well, God showed mercy, just like he did on us at the beginning. And they're like, okay, so now the Gentiles are in on this thing too. And that does not happen during Jesus' ministry. It does not happen in Acts 2:38. There's not a single Gentile gets saved in Acts 2:38. It's going to be 7 years before the first Gentiles hear the gospel of Jesus Christ. And so, if we look at that timeline, it takes some of the mess right out of bad Bible teaching. All right. But it was prophesied, like right here in Isaiah 42, that he would bring forth judgment to the Gentiles. Well, praise the Lord. Verse 2, he shall not cry, nor lift up, nor cause his voice to be heard in the street. Verse 3, a bruised reed shall he not break. I thought about this today. Boy, okay, you know what a reed looks like. It's a big, skinny, tall thing, and sometimes they're a little top-heavy.
Yes.
Can you imagine if one of them is bruised? It's hanging on for dear life. The least little puff of wind, and that thing's coming down, right? It's going to break. A bruised reed shall he not break. And I think, boy, you know, the idea that comes to mind first is, well, in this first coming of Jesus, he's very gentle. This poor little reed is hanging on for dear life, and he's not going to break it. And so I think, he's gentle. Another word that might come to mind is his self-control and his self-awareness. You take like me, take off when I hike, man, I just fly, I mean, I'm just zipping through, and I bump stuff and bump this and bump that. I don't pay any attention. There's no telling how many bruised reeds I would knock over. I wouldn't. First off, the difference between me and him is, number one, I'm not paying that much attention to myself, but mostly I'm not paying attention to the bruised reeds out there. I'm just going like a bull in a china shop, shoo, right? But Jesus is aware when there's a bruised reed around, and he's not going to break it. And the smoking flax shall he not quench. That don't mean a thing in the world to us. Do you all remember, I remember this, when I was a little kid, electricity going to go off, here, there, and yon, and Mom would keep, some of y'all probably still got them, those clear glass lamps.
Yes.
She'd keep one in the kitchen, one in the living room, and one somewhere else. And if it was starting to storm, or the lights are flickering, or they're calling for thunderstorm, the box of matches comes out, and Mom knows right where the matches are, and we've got what she called a coal oil lamp.
Yeah.
Coal oil, that's what she called it. Because, she was raised in a holler, and I was raised in the same holler. We had coal oil lamps. We don't light with lamps no more, but they lit with lamps, right? We all know, well, for the young people listening on Facebook, I think all of us know
Yes.
what happens when your lamp starts running out of oil. When it starts running out of oil, and it starts getting dry, and it starts to smoke, and the fire is just hanging on for dear life, and that last little bit of oil is coming up the wick. And it says the smoke, and it'll smoke. That flax in this verse, that's a wick. The smoking flax, he will not quench. In other words, he looks out and sees that fire is about to go out. Shh, right? No, he was not going to quench it. He shall bring forth judgment unto truth. There's our answer to the end of verse 1. He's going to bring forth judgment to the Gentiles. He's going to bring forth judgment unto truth. Verse 4, he shall not fail nor be discouraged. You look at these interactions he's having with these people over and over, and the end of these interactions, like the end of the last chapter, ends with, they have stooped down and picked up stones to stone him with. And yet, he's not going to fail. He's not going to be discouraged. Till he have set judgment in the earth, and the isles shall wait for his law. Now that's the gospel going out when it goes out in its proper time, and it does. Oh, we could read on down. Look, verse 6, I'm sorry. I, the Lord, have called thee in righteousness. I will hold thine hand and will keep thee and give thee for a covenant of the people, for a light of the Gentiles. That's us again. He doesn't end the sentence. He says, to open the blind eyes, to bring out the prisoners from the prison, and them that sit in darkness out of the prison house. You ever think that's what God thinks of your life down here?
Yeah.
If you're not one of His,
Amen.
you're in the dark and you're in the prison house.
Amen.
And we talked about in the last chapter when Jesus talked about the house. Remember the prison? Come down to about verse 13.
We really are kept in the prison of sin.
Yeah,
Bound
yeah.
and condemned.
Yes, and that's, well, let's preach there. 13, the Lord shall go forth as a mighty man. Man, you think about some of these verses again, boy, there's some people really have trouble with Jesus. But their own prophets told them, right? Even all the way back, remember to Moses, said that God, there'll be a man come up out of us. Hear ye him. The Lord shall go forth as a mighty man. He shall stir up jealousy like a man of war. He shall cry, yea, roar. He shall prevail against his enemies. I think there's one more verse I wanted to get in that before I got out of the chapter. Yeah, 16. And I will bring the blind by a way that they know not. I will lead them in paths that they have not known. I will make darkness light before them, and crooked things straight. These things will I do unto them, and not forsake them. Think about that. I will make darkness light before them, and crooked things straight. Paths that they didn't know before. Oh. A little bit of prophecy about Jesus' ministry. Now let's go to John 9. In chapter 8, Jesus has been in the temple. He started with am I remembering right? He started with a Bible study. Yep. He started with a Bible study, and they brought the woman in. You think about the situation this woman's in. Boy, you talk about a bruised reed. She's in a bad situation. Do you realize that she's fully aware that if Jesus tells those people that we need to uphold the law of Moses, they're going to stone her to death on the spot? And don't think they wouldn't have been afraid to do it. They've already taken up stones to kill Jesus, in the chapter. She's in a spot, right? So now Jesus, they took up stones at the end of chapter 8, 59. They took up stones to cast at him, but Jesus hid himself and went out of the temple, going through the midst of them, and so passed by. Chapter 9, verse 1. And as Jesus passed by, he saw a man which was blind from his birth. Right, so now Jesus is leaving the temple, which is kind of, just got to get the picture of this. He's leaving the temple, and he sees a blind man, because he's aware. Jesus is aware of what's around him. Right? I'm one of the worst in the world. I go through a crowd of people and just don't notice a thing. I remember a guy that used to work for me. He's like my brother, bless his heart. Nate, he was a firefighter, and on his days off from when he wasn't, because he's a full-time firefighter, and they've got this funny rolling shift. He worked for me for years. Best guy ever. I hated losing him. But we go out and do something, run an errand, go somewhere, and I would just be focused on, let's get this done, and get back to the shop. And Nate would look across a crowd of people, and he said, there's a man over there who's having trouble standing up. Or there's a man, and he's gone. And he's helping that guy, and I'm like, well, I never even noticed. He would just see people and what they're doing. And I would just see, I need to do this and this and get back, you know. And he just was aware. Jesus saw a man that was blind from his birth. All right, so we know the man's been blind from his birth. Jesus saw him. He can't see Jesus, right? He's blind. So Jesus is leaving the temple, and here's a blind man outside the temple. I guess you think about what he's doing outside the temple. It would have been nice to be inside the temple, but he's outside. We can think a lot of things about that. We're going to find out later he's a beggar. He's a blind man. He's got to eat somehow. And he's outside the temple. People are going to come and go, right? And so that's a good place for a beggar to set up, right? Verse 2, and his disciples asked him, saying, Master, who did sin, this man or his parents, that he was born blind? Oh, I had to think about this. Think about what they're asking Jesus. Now, the part about his parents, that's the easy one. All right, they're going back to like Deuteronomy 20 or so, when God says certain things I will visit upon children to the third generation.
Yeah.
Okay. So, but the other part of this, did the man sin that he was born blind?
It's like he was, our curse was on him.
Think on that. What did he do? Right? What did he do? I mean, what did he do before he was ever born that he was born blind? Right? So you think about this thing. Now, Jesus has already said back in chapter 8, I am the light of the world. He that followeth me shall not walk in darkness, but shall have the light of life. And I don't know where a question like that comes from. How these people view who God is, how God operates, how this man could possibly sin before he's even been born, that God would curse him with blindness. I don't know. To me, I see people here who are in a little bit of darkness, but they're asking, hey, they've got a question, but the question is a little bit revealing. I think a little bit of maybe how they view God. Verse 3, Jesus answered, neither hath this man sinned, nor his parents. Now that doesn't mean the man was sinless, of course, right? It just means that this is not a, what's the word over in Hebrews? This is not a chastisement, right? But that the works of God should be made manifest in him. So
Maybe he was born blind, that they could see the glory of God.
that's exactly what this is. Yeah.
Exactly what it says.
Yeah. That's exactly what it is. So that the works would be made,
God's plan, yeah.
manifest means to be made known, and God's going to do something in this man, so that his works will be seen. All right, and we're going to get our next miracle. Verse 5. Verse 4. I must work the works of him that sent me while it is day. The night cometh when no man can work. So Jesus is talking about, I'm the light, and I'm bringing light into the world. Those that follow me will walk in light. And I've got to work the works while it's day. The night's coming when no man can work. Verse 5, as long as I am in the world, I am the light of the world. Well, that's your explanation for verse 4. The night comes when no man can work. In other words, the time is coming when I'm not going to be in the world, and I'm the light of it. And the time's coming when I won't be here. So I got to go ahead and get this done.
God will illuminate your life so you can see your sin,
Yeah.
what it is. Then after you're saved, he will illuminate your path so you can walk in his way,
Yeah.
in his righteousness.
Yeah. That's what these whole 2 chapters are all about. Yeah. That's exactly it. Verse 6. When he had thus spoken, he spat on the ground and made clay of the spittle, and he anointed the eyes of the blind man with the clay, and said unto him, Go, wash in the pool of Siloam, which is by interpretation sent. He went his way therefore and washed, and came seeing.
What about that?
Yeah. This is a new miracle. And like I said, we're going to have 7 miracles in John. Each one of them teaches us something. We learned about the miracle of the word. We've learned about the miracle of healing the man's son by faith. Remember, at a distance. You don't have to go. Just say it'll happen. Remember, we've learned about the miracle of. I'm trying to keep all these straight in my head. Let's see, what was our next one? Healing the cripple at the pool that couldn't get himself to the water. And we learned about grace. And so we've learned about the word and faith and grace, which is what we need to get to salvation. And once we're saved, we have the miracle of Jesus feeding the 5,000. I am the bread of life. That's our sustenance. He walked on the water, calmed the storm. That's what he did. He calmed the storm. We learned that he calms the storm in the life of the believer. Now we've got a new miracle. He's given sight to the blind. And to what Jerry's talking about here, this is exactly the point of it. Is you go back to chapter 8 and verse 12 when he said, I'm the light of the world. He that followeth me shall not walk in darkness, but shall have the light of life. That's why I wanted to read over in Isaiah when it said he's going to bring judgment to the Gentiles, a path they have not walked, a way they have not known. Something's going to be different, right? Something's going to be different, and that's going to. We'll probably read that again when we start chapter 10. There's something else in there as well. But what's Jesus done here now? Does Jesus have to? So remember what we learned back when he turned the water into wine. He said, fill the pots. And then they went to get the liquid out, and it wasn't water anymore. Right? Jesus feeds 5,000 with the few loaves and the fishes. Does Jesus need to spit in the dust and make clay and put on this guy's eyes? No, he does not need to. Why does he do it?
I need to say something.
Why does he do it? Yeah, it's going to come up here.
But Josh, you notice, in all those miracles that you named, there was instructions given by Jesus himself.
Fill the pots.
And
You
those
feed the people.
instructions, By the obedience of the people, by following his instructions, brought about the miracle.
Yeah.
Just like this man here, if he had not gone and washed, he wouldn't have seen.
That's a good point. They had to have the faith to do what they were told to do.
Yeah.
And that's one thing that does tie these together. Thank you, Charles. It does tie these together.
And that could also mean discipleship too.
Yeah. Well, this is, those first few miracles taught us about salvation. The ones after that are teaching us about the benefits that come with it. This is exactly discipleship. Follow me. It's not a, that's the discipleship thing here. It's follow me so that this light is always there. So he didn't have to make the clay. He told the man to go wash. The man didn't have to do it. But I mean, you think about the day this man's about to have. I mean, he's been blind from birth. He sits outside the temple and begs. And somebody comes along. What in the world is going on? But when we're beggars and we're desperate, I mean, smoking flax, he will not quench, right? I mean, this man is, you think you've had a bad day. You've never probably had a day as bad as this man's average day, you know. I mean, he's got it rough. And Jesus notices him as he's leaving the temple. And I mean, you think about it. Those fellows had picked up stones to stone him. And as he's leaving the temple, there's a guy that needs help. He is aware. He's aware of who's around him. He's aware of that man's need. You know,
It's no telling
It's
how many
Jesus.
people was out there.
I'm sorry.
I said, it's no telling how many people was out there too.
That's true. You know, it brings to mind, somebody that's colorblind, the first time they look through a pair of glasses that helps them to see color.
Oh yeah.
And if you can imagine how that makes them feel, because I saw it bring tears to their eyes.
Yeah.
And then imagine somebody that's never saw
Yeah.
a color, you know, and what I see as green may not be what you see as green.
Yeah. Yeah.
But imagine when they first open their eyes and see anything.
Yeah. Yeah. This is such a thing here. You know, it's really something to think about. You know.
I'll tell you something that I experienced it, and I'm still amazed with, is that when I was lost and got saved, man, the eyes that Jesus gave me, he opened my eyes to where that I could see the love of Christ and what all he'd done for me, and I even, while the flowers were more pretty, everything was brighter, and a totally different outlook on everything.
Yeah.
That's,
And then I would look at my friends that I used to run around with and think, and the life that they lived, and I wanted them to be saved so bad. And I could see, I can understand now where I was and where they are. You know, and when I had a desire to see them saved.
and they start having trouble with you. And
Yeah.
we're going to see that in this story.
Yeah.
We're going to see that in this story. But this is a very spiritual passage right here. I mean, that's exactly what's going on. It's exactly what's being shown to us. I mean, do you remember?
So-called friends when I got saved because, hey, I was dumb to that.
Yeah. Well, he went his way, therefore, and washed. He went and did what Jesus said, and he came seeing. All right. So that's the miracle. And now what happens out of that? But boy, we have a picture here of a guy who's really, I mean, he's a beggar. He's desperate. He's in a desperate situation. Jesus sees him. Jesus helps him.
This adds fuel to the fire of the ones that wants to get rid of it.
Yeah.
Well,
It just infuriates them.
that's what that clay's about. Yeah, that's what the clay's about. But anyway, verse 8. The neighbors therefore, so this is the people that know him, right? The neighbors therefore, and they which before had seen him that was blind said, is this not he that sat and begged? In other words, they know him, they've known him, you know, probably all his life. And now, you know, I mean, this is quite the miracle. In fact, he's going to describe it later on in this chapter. That nothing like this has ever happened before. And so that's not only his experience, but that's his neighbors too. Because now they're seeing this guy's like, wait a minute, you know, someone takes him to the temple every day, or he knows how to get there one, and that's his life. He begs, and that's his life. And now he sees, right? I mean, that's the spiritual application to that is, you know, I think about some of the language here. I mean, you think about, I think about even Paul talking about how the devil, this is why you gotta be careful about light. You know, transform, you know, ministers of light. That's deception. But some of the verses we've read about this present evil world, and there in Isaiah 42, the set in prison, in the prison house, you know, in the dark, and now the light goes on. And now the light goes on for us, and now what do we do? You know, what do we do? Because we're just like the beggar. We're blind as blind could be. And Jesus sees us. Right? Jesus sees us. And we have an encounter and we get to choose how this thing's going to go. Then after we get to choose how this thing's going to continue. Right? Whether we're desperate and stay as beggars or not. You know, some Christians stay beggars. They don't have to, but they stay beggars. They stay just far enough away from the Lord until they're desperate. And they're in a desperate situation. And they get real close to the Lord for about 2 weeks. And then you don't see them again. And you know what? Don't look down your nose at them. They're in a bad spot. Just realize what's going on. Sometimes people would rather stay a beggar. Verse 8, the neighbors therefore, and they which before had seen him that was blind said, is this not he that sat and begged? Verse 9, some said, this is he. Others said, well, he is like him. But he said, I am he. Well, he speaks proper English. I am he. Yep. Verse 10, therefore said they unto him, how were thine eyes opened? 11, he answered and said, a man that is called Jesus made clay. So evidently he knew what was going on there. I mean, he hears Jesus spit and he knows what's going on. And anointed mine eyes and said unto me, go to the pool of Siloam and wash. And I went and washed and I received sight. So he knows exactly what happened. He knows who did it. A man called Jesus. And I received sight. I did what he told me to do.
You know what? He said that a man called Jesus. That makes me know that he knew who Christ was before he ever saw him.
Yeah, he's listening.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's paying attention and listening.
Yeah.
I mean, he's outside the temple. It makes you wonder how much he heard about what was going on in there.
Yeah.
You know,
And you know, he knew him before he ever received his sight. He knew who done it.
he knew. Yeah, that's right. He did. Otherwise, he wouldn't know. Yeah.
Man, that's blind, his hearing's a lot ignorant than
That's a good point. Yes,
depends on it.
that's a good point. He's using the sense he's got a lot harder. That's exactly right. So his way of knowing what's going on in the world is to listen, because he can't see. Yeah. Good point. Then said they unto him, verse 12, where is he? So where is this Jesus? And he said, I know not. All right. Well, that's the reaction. We've got the miracle. We've got the reaction by his neighbors, the people that had known him. Okay, now what happens? Verse 13. They brought to the Pharisees him that aforetime was blind. Okay, so this giant miracle has happened. It's a great miracle. And, well, let's take him down to the religious leaders. I mean, wouldn't normally that seem like the thing to do? Imagine for just a moment if Moses had healed a man of blindness somewhere out in the camp when they were going through the desert. Wouldn't they want to get that man up there in front of everybody and show what had happened? And right. And that would have been right. So they brought to the Pharisees him that aforetime was blind. 14. And it was the Sabbath day when Jesus made the clay and opened his eyes. Well, there's the stick, right? There's the stick in the mud. He's made clay. Remember last time he had told a guy to take up his bed and walk? And he did good on the Sabbath, and they wanted to kill him for doing work. They're servile work, right? And they've been all over the law. We've been through that in the last few chapters. Here we are. Jesus has made clay. You know, you think, well, if he had just rolled up enough, he'd have eventually had a brick. They could accuse him of making bricks on the Sabbath. I don't know. But he's made clay. There we go. And opened his eyes. What do you think they're really mad about? Are they mad because he opened his eyes, or mad because he made the clay? They're mad because he opened his eyes. You know, you get what's going. Once you get what's going on here, you'll find out why they like it. Anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. 15. Then again, the Pharisees also asked him how he had received his sight. He said to them, he put clay upon mine eyes, and I washed and do see. All right. He's giving the same testimony, right? Doesn't change. He's given the same testimony to the neighbors, who he would have known by voice. And like she said a minute ago, imagine what that would have been like for the first time. It's like, well, I've heard that person's voice since I can remember. Now I know what they look like. How does he even know what look like is? He's had nothing but dark, right? All he knows is how things feel and how things sound, how things taste, right? Now he knows how things look, right? And so he's having quite the day. Everything is, you know.
Sunshine and roses.
Yeah. But his testimony is the same. He tells them the same thing. 16, therefore said some of the Pharisees, this man is not of God, because he keepeth not the Sabbath day. There you go. Others said, how can a man that is a sinner do such miracles? And there was a division among them.
Another division.
Aha, all right. Now, okay, so you've got some of them within the group that say, he's not keeping the Sabbath, he made clay, right? I'll tell you guys about some. I used to have a bunch of these, there was this list, because, the law of Moses says, don't do certain things. And they had written a set of rules to go with that was like 700 rules long. And it was rules on all kinds of things. You had to be, and I'm trying to remember, you couldn't dip a cucumber in vinegar and eat it, because it might turn into a pickle on the way to your mouth, and then you'd be accused of making pickles on the Sabbath. There was a certain way you had to, something to do with water, like water spilling on the floor the wrong way, because you could be accused of washing floors on the Sabbath. And what they had done is God said this, and they made a list of rules about this long that you had to keep so that you didn't break that. And of course, the first thing I think of is back in the last chapter when Jesus says, if the Son has made you free, you are free indeed. And then you get over there in Colossians, where Paul talks about the handwriting of ordinances that was against us, contrary to us. He nailed it to us. It's like, praise the Lord, But the problem here is that they've written a set of rules to help you follow the rules, and they've elevated that above what God said.
There's some denominations that do that today.
It never ends, Jerry. It never ends. That's exactly right. It never ends. It never ends.
I think the biggest thing about it is, I know God made 10.
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah. And they turned 10 into 700. Yeah. Yeah. And, it's man wants to think that he's done it. Look how good I've done, God. I've went so far to make sure that I didn't break that. And I come up with all these ways that I didn't break that. All right, but look at the end of verse 16. How can a man that is a sinner do such miracles? Now, you remember there's at least one among these. His name's Nicodemus, remember? Mm-hmm. He's chimed in. He went to Jesus and said, we know. And then he chimed in again later. Now, I don't know who this is, but somebody in there says, now wait a minute. And so there's this division. For 17, they say unto the blind man again, what sayest thou of him that he hath opened thine eyes? He said he is a prophet. Well, so they're asking the man, what do you say of him? And he said, well, he's a prophet. 18, but the Jews did not believe concerning him that he had been blind and received his sight until they called the parents of him that had received his sight. So all these people, these miracles happen, And the neighbors have taken him in verse 13 to the Pharisees to show them what God has done, and they don't believe it.
I guess
They don't believe them, and they don't believe him.
I guess they think that guy was just standing out there pretending like he was blind all his life.
I don't know if they had those dark glasses.
Yeah.
I don't mean to make fun, but you would never know, right? I mean, anyway.
For them to keep on behaving like they are, I mean, Jesus put up with so much and just kept putting up with them and kept giving them chance after chance.
Yeah.
It's like us though, I mean, really,
The-
I'm just thinking, these people are wearing me out. But then-
It does wear you out.
but
It
then-
is. It's like chapter after chapter of this, and it's like, this is get. Boy, you know the word that comes to mind, we talked about this on the way home the other night. Oh, God is long-suffering.
Yes.
If he wasn't long-suffering, and Jesus wasn't more self-aware, that's why Isaiah says, a bruised reed he shall not break, right? Because these people have picked up stones to kill him. And here we are again, and here we are again, and here we are again. And, you know, but we're just as blind as they are. See, that's what's going on here. You know who's blind in this chapter? Somebody's blind. Somebody can see, right? You know, but we fight the same fight until we don't fight it anymore. You know?
The bad thing about it is, they don't want to know the truth.
Yeah. Yeah, he's gonna come to that. He's gonna come to that.
We're blessed that Jesus has patience too.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
Everything that Jesus is teaching here and doing, it goes against their grain that is so ingrained in them with the Levitical law and the Jewish law and everything that they've been taught all their life, and their fathers,
Yeah.
and generation to generation.
Yep.
And they just can't get it through their head.
So they didn't believe him, so they've called the parents in verse 19, and they asked them, that's the parents, saying, is this your son, whom ye say was born blind? How then doth he now see? So, okay, well, they're really interested in how this happened. Right? 20, his parents answered them and said, we know that this is our son, and that he was born blind. So, but by what means he now seeth, we know not. Now, this kind of harkens back to what Jerry was talking about. When he got saved, and the light goes on,
Yeah.
and everything looks different.
Yes.
And people see, well, you're not the same. And his parents are saying, well, he's our son, but we don't know how this happened. Right? When a person gets saved, the people around them go, well, they're not the same, but we don't know how this has happened. You see this pattern. By what means he now seeth, we know not. Right? Or who hath opened his eyes, we know not. He is of age, ask him, he shall speak for himself. All right, so they're getting it off of them, putting it back on, and there's a reason for that. It's going to come up in a minute. There's a reason for that. These words, yeah, matter of fact, in the next verse, 22. These words spake his parents because they feared the Jews. You know what the great big enemy of faith is fear. It's hard to hold both those in your hand at the same time. In fact, that's the whole thing. That's why, well, the ultimate expression of that in words to me is when Paul says we walk by faith, not by sight.
Mm-hmm.
Because close your eyes and go.
Well, I
And
just think it's terrible that his parents threw him under the bus. I just think that's terrible.
They're afraid. But and this is why. This is why. Look at the end of the verse. For the Jews had agreed already that if any man did confess that he was Christ, he should be put out of the synagogue. They're going to get kicked out of their religion. And they're looking at their own son, born blind, who can now see. And they're afraid of getting kicked out of their religion.
Using him for a scapegoat.
So,
The key
It
word
is.
that you said right there is religion.
yeah, they're afraid of getting,
Religion to take you to hell.
yeah, they're afraid of getting kicked out of their religion. They're going to kick me out of the synagogue. Now, think about this for a minute. Now, I mean, look, these are just people, and we get to look at them and poke and poke and poke. But your child has just been, I mean, can you imagine how many times they took their little boy to the doctor when he was little, when they were trying to figure out why isn't he acting like, and they figured out he's blind. What do you think they would have give? What do you think they would have give? I tell you what, you don't. My oldest son, firstborn, when he was born, when he got up about 4, toward 5, he had an eye that started going off just a little bit. And we took him, you know what you do, you take him to the eye doctor. Young eye doctor there in Somerset, whippersnapper. And he tested Logan and said, he's got a condition in his eye. He said he'll go blind in this eye in his mid-teens. He'll lose his other eye in his 20s. He'll be blind the rest of his life. That's rough. We sat on that for about 3 months and thought, you know what? That's a big deal. Let's get a second opinion. We went to an old eye doctor. And the old eye doctor looked at us and said, yep, here's what we're going to do. He said, we're going to put a patch on his good eye. And we're going to make his bad eye work hard and develop while he's still young. That boy wore a patch on his eye for 2 years. Now his other brother come along, younger than him, who was, this is what's funny, because Sam came along, and Sam was crazy about pirates. And here's his older brother that wears a patch. Every day, for years, you know. And Logan, listen, you know, I mean, every day, there goes that patch. Every day, there goes that patch. He's a little bitty kid. He would put that patch on. And we didn't have to, you know, he was so easy as a kid. It's like, you got to wear the patch, you wear the patch. He wore that patch for 2 years, maybe a little bit longer. And we'd get him checked up, and the doctor said, hey, you know what? His weak eye has caught up. He's fine. Now, he wears glasses today, but he's, what, 28, 29? He's not blind. He's not blind in either eye, you know. But boy, we did, I just said, what would you do as parents if someone said, well, your child's blind or going blind, or, you know, he's born blind. You wouldn't do nothing. You'd do everything you could. And now, at some point, he's full-age man. He's just got his sight. And you've gone down to your church, and the people at your church, the leaders at your church, are going to kick you out.
Yeah.
If you confess that he was Christ, they're going to kick you out of the church. I know we're laughing about it, but it's serious. I mean, these people are full of, does this go together? Maybe it does. They're deeply religious, and they're full of fear. Mm-hmm. You think those two things go together?
No, they don't.
You know, I was thinking about one of the little girls was walking around today with a bowl on her hands. And she runs into the table. And that's the way we are. Until we stumble onto something and it absolutely knocks us back.
Yeah.
We don't have any outlook to what's coming at us.
Sometimes we don't even know we're the beggar.
Yeah.
That's right. That's why sometimes our brothers and sisters that struggle, they don't know they're the beggar.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be that way. They just don't know they're the beggar. And when we're lost, sometimes we don't know.
No.
That man is sitting there. He doesn't see Jesus. Jesus sees him, right? 23, therefore said his parents, he is of age, ask him. All right. 24. Then again called they the man that was blind and said unto him, give God the praise. We know that man is a sinner. So they've told him, they give God the praise.
Yeah.
Okay. They want this man to look at what's happened to him the way they say it. They told him, give God the praise, because we know this man is a sinner. Wow. 25. He answered and said, is this not the most verses we've done in the chapter? In a study? Mercy. He answered and said, whether he be a sinner or no, I know not. One thing I know, that whereas I was blind, now I see. That's his testimony. What does he know? Nothing. He just knows some guy made clay, put it on his eyes, told him to go to Siloam, wash it, now I can see. What do you know about this man? Nothing. What did you know about Jesus when you first started out? Nothing. But you knew one thing, that where you had been blind, now you see. Something's different. You don't know.
He accepted it. That's just like when something good to us, we want to try to explain it away. Well, it's a scientific fact or whatever. We don't have enough faith to accept that this is God. He accepted. I don't know how it happened. It happened. I can see. It's kind of like, that's it. It's settled.
Yeah. We try to take the why.
We try to take the why.
We want to understand the why. And sometimes we just need to say, that's not mine to understand. It's not mine. That's exactly right. Yeah.
Early in my ministry, I struggled with this, being a young minister, and I couldn't understand. Oh, it was just absolutely eating me. I would preach the word and preach what God was with them. And you could look at the congregation, and you could see their knuckles turn white. Why can't they see? Why can't they see? And I prayed and I prayed and I prayed. And the Lord said, just come to me. They don't see with the same eyes that you're looking with.
That's right. That's right. Listen, we talk about this a little bit in Sunday school Sunday morning. We try to take the responsibility of God away from them sometimes.
Yeah.
And we do it in subtle ways. And then once we do it and we realize, well, I can't do that. Jesus said, a man goes out to sow seed, and some of it falls on stony ground.
Yeah.
Some of it falls on good ground. It might fall on a rock.
Yeah.
Here's what we do. We sometimes we find a rock, and we think our job is to pound that seed into that rock until it goes, takes hold. I'm going to tell you something. I can do this two ways. I can do this with 4 fingers. I'm going to show you with 4 fingers how many hearts you've ever changed in your life. No. I can do it with 2. That's not your job.
That's right.
It's not your responsibility.
Yes. Amen.
If you think it is and you take that on, you are going to feel like such a loser, Christian. Like my ministry, I don't get nothing good done for God.
Right.
But that's not your job.
Right.
The one we were talking about, Sunday morning, and I had this problem. I had this problem as a young Christian. I don't ever have this problem anymore. No, Jesus told another little story. He said, the enemy, we went out and sowed wheat, and the enemy came in at night and sowed tares. And they sprung up, and we can't tell the difference between the two. What do? We think it's our responsibility to pick out the tares. Well, what did Jesus say? Leave them. And the reapers will come and sort that out. And some will go, but get bundled up and go in the furnace. But we can't, well, that's not my responsibility. It's just not. But we try to take on responsibility like that, and then we go, man, I can't get nothing done right for God. I can't get nothing done right at all. And your job is to sow and then go sow. And you know what? It's going to fall on the ground. It's going to fall on the rock. It's going to fall in a good spot. It's going to fall wherever it falls. That's not your problem.
Right.
It's not your, number one, you don't know. But God deals with men's hearts, and we try to take that on, and we think that we're going to spread the gospel with a jackhammer, and we go try to spread the gospel in the quarry, and you just spread it wherever, and take that pressure, don't try to take God's responsibility away from him. We struggle enough as it is, as blind beggars, and then we get some spiritual discernment, and we get some light, but we're not Jesus. We're gonna call it in here, but I just want to where do we get down to?
25.
25, okay. You know, Jesus says, I just want to give this to you. I'm the light of the world. He that followeth me shall not walk in darkness, but shall have the light of life. Now, later on in John, Jesus is going to say some things about following him. But you know, Jesus does a lot of things, and we think, and I know that like this was popular years ago, and I'm not kicking it. I am not kicking it. But look how much time Jesus spends doing things that we can't not do. I don't know when the root is. I don't know when the reed is bruised. I don't always know when the flax is smoking. I don't know. Jesus sees men's hearts. Remember, we've seen that in John. You and I don't. We don't know. Jesus spends so much time in his ministry doing things that we can't possibly do.
Amen.
So when we look at Jesus, we go, well, how do I follow him?
Okay.
There was a campaign years ago, WWJD. I ain't got nothing against it because it's not a bad idea. It's just a little misdirected. What would Jesus do? Well, chances are you can't do it.
Yeah.
Just get over yourself.
Yeah.
He said, follow me. Follow me. Did you know that there's a guy that wrote most of this New Testament? And you know what he said? He said, be ye followers of me, even as I also am of Christ. 1 Corinthians. That's the long English way of saying follow Jesus the way I follow Jesus.
Yeah.
There's an example of a human man that's not, he can't see into men's hearts. He can't do these things that Jesus is doing. But boy, he could follow the Lord.
Yeah.
And said, you need to follow the Lord the way I follow the Lord. And so the old idea of what would Jesus do, like we'd come to a situation and be like, whoa, what would Jesus do here? It's like, honey, no. How would Paul follow Jesus in this situation? You can learn that.
Yeah.
You can learn that. But you can't look into a man's heart and go, well, you know, this is how this, that we'll limit ourselves. You know, we'll limit ourselves. Anyway. Any questions? John chapter 9, verse 25.
You moved.
All right. Nope.
So I'll give Josh a hand.
Praise, brother, because we have special prayer. Praise, brother.
Yeah.